Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Always.
Yes.
Okay, great. Today we're going to be tackling this idea of cultural illiteracy. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and we're using this article, The Silent Crisis, the Impact of Cultural Illiteracy on Today's Society.
Okay.
And it really gets you thinking about how, like, even small things can cause these huge misunderstandings between cultures,
Yeah.
and how these major historical events, I mean, things like the Age of Exploration, are still shaping the way we interact today. So,
Wow, that's fascinating. I think this article really does a good job of kind of reframing what we even mean by cultural illiteracy.
yeah.
It's not just about not knowing facts about other cultures. It's really more about a lack of understanding of the deeper level, like the
Hmm.
norms and values
Right.
and the practices, and even like what's considered polite.
Yeah.
And in our world today, which is so interconnected, right?
Hmm.
That kind of understanding is just absolutely crucial.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's like that example they give in the article about personal space.
Oh, yeah?
What might be seen as friendly in one culture, like,
All right.
could feel totally intrusive in another.
Absolutely.
And so easy to see how that could lead to these big misunderstandings.
Massive miscommunication.
Yeah, exactly. And then they get into the history, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
They talk about how, like, the Age of Exploration, obviously this time of incredible discovery,
Right.
but it was also when a lot of dominant cultures imposed their ways on others.
It was. Yeah.
And, it's almost like the echoes of those power dynamics are still influencing us today.
It's so true. Like how we view other cultures, how we relate to different cultures.
Yeah.
It's wild how far back some of this goes.
I know. I never thought of it that way. It's like a chain reaction, through time.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you've got the Industrial Revolution
Oh, yeah?
throwing everything into this giant melting pot
Huge.
with mass migrations. People from totally different backgrounds are suddenly, like, living and working side by side.
Competing for resources, different values.
Hmm.
Yeah. No wonder there was friction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic recipe for conflict, isn't it?
Totally.
And it kind of brings us to globalization, which the article talks about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how it can be both this bridge between cultures, but it can also be this potential threat to cultural diversity.
Right.
They talk about the spread of Western media
Yeah.
and, like, consumerism, and how that can sometimes overshadow local traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost creates this sense of cultural detachment.
Yeah.
Even from your own heritage, like we were saying, right? It can
Yeah.
cut both ways.
Okay, so this is where I start to get a little nervous, right?
Oh, yeah.
What are the real-world consequences of all this? How does cultural illiteracy actually play out in our lives? This isn't just theoretical, all right?
Oh, it's absolutely not theoretical. I mean, think about it this way. If just miscommunication, because of cultural differences, right,
Mhm.
can cause tension and conflict, just imagine that playing out in your workplace.
Yeah.
In your community.
Online, even.
Totally.
The article actually it gives a really good example of how, like, negative assumptions about immigrant communities, for instance,
Right.
really show how easily stereotypes form when people don't understand someone's background,
Yeah.
like the complexities.
No, that's a really sobering thought. And, it makes you realize how this can contribute to some really serious problems, like prejudice and discrimination.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And the article even talks about how it can impact mental health
yeah.
and lead to social isolation.
Right, because people feel like they don't belong.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
if you're constantly trying to navigate a world that just doesn't get your cultural norms.
Doesn't understand you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that really drives the point home. It's not just some abstract concept. This is affecting real people
This is real life. Yeah.
in really profound ways.
Yeah.
So, I got to ask, what about education? What role does education play in all of this?
Yeah, great question.
I mean, does our current system help, or does it actually make things worse?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the article is actually pretty critical of the emphasis that's placed on standardized testing and rote memorization in a lot of education systems. They argue that it doesn't really encourage exploring other cultures or even critical thinking, for that matter.
Yeah, it's like we're rewarding memorizing facts and figures instead of actually understanding the nuances and complexities of different cultures.
Yeah. Like depth.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
all about breadth.
Right.
It's not about depth.
Yeah. No, totally. So it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do? Well, the article really challenges educators to step up.
Okay.
And, they need resources and training to bring in that cultural sensitivity and those diverse viewpoints into the lessons.
Yeah.
It's got to be more than just textbooks.
Right.
It's about creating a classroom that reflects the incredible diversity of the world we live in.
Okay, I'm totally with you there. But it can't just be on the teachers, can it?
Right. Don't we need system-wide changes? Like, shouldn't there be policies that support a more culturally rich and diverse curriculum?
100%. Absolutely. And this is where things get really interesting, because now let's talk about media and technology.
Okay, right.
How do they fit into all of this?
Let's do it. So we've talked about how education needs a bit of a makeover, but what about the media? I mean, it plays such a huge role in shaping how we see the world, right? And how we see different cultures.
It totally does. I mean, it's like you hit it right on the head. It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
On the one hand, we have access to all these diverse stories, and we have the potential for these like cross-cultural conversations like never before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the article points out how easy it is for misinformation to spread.
Right.
And those echo chambers, especially online.
Oh, totally. It's like everyone's retreating into their own little cultural bubbles on social media. So how do we use these tools responsibly? I mean, we can't just passively consume everything we see, can we?
Exactly. And that's where critical thinking comes in.
Right.
Media literacy. We have to question what we're seeing, analyze it, look for different perspectives.
So be an informed consumer of information, not just scrolling mindlessly.
Exactly.
But, we can't forget about the positive side of technology.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the article talks about how it can actually help bridge cultural gaps. Think about all those online resources.
Absolutely.
Virtual exchange programs, ways to connect with people from all over the world.
You're absolutely right. There's so much potential there.
Yeah.
But that kind of brings us to the bigger question, which is, what can we actually do about cultural illiteracy?
Right. Yeah.
Like, are there concrete steps that individuals or communities can take?
Okay, yeah. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. What can we do, like today?
Well, according to the article, one of the most powerful things is really just getting involved in your community.
Yeah.
I mean, the best way to learn about another culture is to experience it firsthand.
Right. So not just reading books or watching documentaries, but getting out there.
Exactly. Getting out there,
Exactly.
talking to people.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some ways to actually do that?
Well, they talk about community programs, cultural exchange events, workshops, festivals, anything that brings people together to learn from each other in a fun, engaging way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I love that. Imagine like a neighborhood festival where each block is celebrating a different culture with food and music and art and stories.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah. It'd be so vibrant.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be this big, massive production.
Right.
It can be small.
Yeah.
Think about like a potluck dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Where everybody brings a dish that represents their heritage.
I love that.
It's such a simple way to connect, share stories, learn about each other's traditions.
It is, and it's something that anyone can do. Yeah, no matter what their budget is. Just create those informal spaces for cultural exchange to happen. But what about for people who are in more formal settings, like in the workplace?
Yeah, good point. Well, the article makes a pretty strong case for cross-cultural training.
Okay.
Especially in workplaces and educational settings.
So giving people the tools and the skills they need to interact respectfully.
Exactly. With sensitivity.
That way.
And I mean, think about it. In our globalized world, we're constantly interacting with people from all sorts of backgrounds.
Yeah.
Work, school, online.
It's true.
And without that cross-cultural awareness, it's so easy to slip into misunderstandings.
Oh, yeah.
Miscommunication.
I can think of so many times when I've said something or done something that looking back was probably culturally insensitive.
Right.
Just because I didn't know any better.
And that's exactly why this kind of training is so crucial. It helps people develop that awareness, learn about different communication styles, understand those cultural norms and values, and become better communicators in a diverse world.
Yeah. It's almost like learning a new language.
It is. It is.
The language of cultural sensitivity.
That's good. I like that.
And just like any language, it takes practice. It takes a willingness to learn.
Absolutely.
But what does that kind of training actually look like? Like, are there specific examples that you've seen work?
Yeah, well, one approach that they talk about in the article is using simulations and role-playing.
Okay.
And it makes sense because it's one thing to talk about these differences, but it's a whole other thing to actually experience them firsthand.
Right. To actually put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Exactly. And see the world through their cultural lens.
Yeah.
And, you could have simulations where people are negotiating a business deal or resolving a conflict, but everybody's assigned a different cultural role. And it really forces them to think critically about their own assumptions, their own communication style, and how to adapt to different cultural norms.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful. Like going beyond just knowledge and actually building empathy and understanding.
And remember, this isn't just about individuals.
Right.
It's about organizations creating a culture of inclusivity.
Right.
Where everybody feels valued and understood, no matter their background.
So it's not just about ticking a box, but a real commitment.
A genuine commitment.
Yeah. But what about starting even earlier, like with kids?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we be teaching them about cultural differences from a young age?
100%.
Yeah.
That's where the article's call for educational reform comes in.
Okay.
It's about weaving cultural literacy into the curriculum right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that kids grow up with this strong foundation.
Yeah.
Of understanding and appreciation for different cultures.
I love that. Imagine a world where every child learned about different cultures, languages, histories.
It would be amazing.
It would be transformative.
It would. It really would.
Yeah.
But it does require a pretty major shift in how we think about education.
Right.
Because it's not just about memorizing facts, right?
Yeah.
It's about fostering critical thinking, empathy, and the ability to connect with people from all different backgrounds.
So creating global citizens.
Exactly. And actually, the article highlights some countries that are already doing this really well.
Okay.
We talked about Japan earlier.
Yeah.
But Finland and Canada are doing some pretty amazing things to integrate cultural literacy into their education systems.
That's inspiring. It shows that it can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done. And it starts with education.
Yeah.
But it's not all on educators, is it?
No.
What about the role of government?
That's a great point. Government policies and funding can make a huge difference in supporting these initiatives.
Right.
And promoting diversity and inclusion.
It's their responsibility to create a society where everyone feels welcome,
Absolutely.
valued, no matter their background.
And there's so many ways that they can do that.
Yeah.
Funding community programs, providing resources for that cross-cultural training, supporting cultural institutions.
Yeah.
And creating policies that promote diversity and inclusion in every aspect of society.
Okay, so it's about making a choice.
It's about making a choice.
To build a better world.
To build a better world.
But that brings us back to us.
Right, exactly.
What can we do as individuals?
Yeah, what can we do? Because it can feel overwhelming, right?
It can. So what are some concrete steps listeners can take to make a difference?
Well, going back to what we said earlier, one of the simplest things is just being curious.
Okay.
Being open to learning about different cultures. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Seek out experiences that challenge your assumptions.
Embrace the unknown.
Embrace the unknown. Be willing to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. But what happens when we make mistakes? Because we will.
We will. We're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right.
The important thing is to be open to feedback.
Yeah.
Learn from those mistakes and keep trying to be more understanding and inclusive.
So approaching those cultural differences with humility.
With humility.
And a willingness to learn.
Absolutely. And remember, cultural literacy is about building relationships, too.
Okay, yeah.
It's about connecting with people from different backgrounds, sharing those stories, listening to each other's experiences, and finding common ground.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. It's about seeing our shared humanity.
Yeah.
Even when we come from different cultures. And celebrating those differences. Because our world is so much richer and more vibrant because of its diversity.
Absolutely. Diversity is a strength, not a weakness.
A strength. And when we embrace that diversity, we can create a more just, equitable, and compassionate world for everyone.
That's powerful. Before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to challenge our listeners to do one thing.
Ooh, a challenge. I like it.
Think of one concrete thing you can do this week to improve your own cultural literacy.
Okay.
It could be as simple as reading a book about a different culture, watching a foreign film, or starting a conversation with someone from a different background.
I love that challenge. It's about taking those small steps that can lead to really big changes. And remember, this journey of cultural literacy, it's ongoing. There's always something new to learn.
Right.
New experiences to have, new ways to connect with that tapestry of cultures that make up our world.
Beautifully said. Okay, we'll be right back for the final part of our exploration where we'll take a look at the future of cultural literacy and what it means for all of us. Until then, stay curious and keep learning. Welcome back, everyone. We're on the final part of our deep dive into cultural literacy. And we've really dug deep into what it is, where it came from, the challenges, and even some inspiring ideas for moving forward. But now I'm curious about what the future holds. Like, what trends are shaping cultural literacy moving forward, and what does that mean for all of us?
Well, one thing that the article really highlights is how, global shifts are making this less of a nice to have and more of a total necessity.
Oh, yeah.
I take the rise in immigration.
Yeah.
We're seeing incredibly diverse communities all around the world.
Yeah. It really feels like the world's becoming this intricate tapestry of cultures with all these vibrant patterns and colors.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And it means that we need to step up our game, right?
Yeah.
In terms of actually understanding and appreciating those differences.
Totally.
It's not just about avoiding, awkward situations anymore.
Right.
It's about building bridges, making collaboration possible, and just making sure everybody feels like they belong in these, increasingly diverse societies.
Right.
It's almost like we're all becoming global citizens, whether we realize it or not.
I love that idea of becoming global citizens. And it makes me think about those cultural exchange programs that they talked about in the article.
Yes.
Those seem so powerful.
Such a good way to just break down barriers and really build genuine understanding.
Yeah.
Think about it. You've got a student from Japan, and they're spending a semester in Brazil. Or, a young professional from France who's doing an internship in India. These are the kinds of immersive experiences that can be really life-changing.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about, absorbing information.
Right.
It's about developing empathy, broadening perspectives, and challenging our own preconceived notions.
Totally. Like stepping outside of our comfort zones,
Right.
seeing the world through a different lens.
And it's those personal connections that can really, really change things.
I agree. And, it's not just for young people either.
That's a really good point.
It can be valuable at any stage, right?
Absolutely.
Like professionals working on international projects, retirees traveling, immersing themselves in new cultures. I mean, the possibilities are pretty endless.
Yeah, they really are.
Oh.
And it makes me think about, technology plays such a huge role in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have this incredible opportunity to connect with people and cultures all over the world.
Right?
Right from our own homes. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is. Like having a portal to a different culture, right?
But of course, it's not a magical cure-all.
Of course not.
We still have to be smart about how we use these tools.
Right. Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, we have to be critical consumers of information.
Okay.
We have to actively seek out diverse viewpoints, and we have to be aware of potential biases, misinformation. We can't just passively absorb whatever pops up on our screens.
Right. So it's almost like we all need to become cultural detectives in a way.
I love that. Yes.
Sifting through the clues.
Sifting through those clues.
Building a more accurate understanding of the world.
That's exactly what cultural literacy is all about.
Yeah.
It gives us the tools and the mindset to navigate this increasingly complex, always changing world.
Yeah.
With sensitivity, respect, and a real thirst for knowledge.
I love that. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what is one takeaway you hope our listeners will carry with them?
I think the most important thing is that cultural literacy, it's a journey. It's not destination.
Okay.
It's this commitment to continuous learning.
Yeah.
Challenging our own assumptions.
Yeah.
And really embracing that beauty and the complexity of our diverse world.
I love that. Being curious, open-minded, willing to step outside our comfort zones to connect with others on a deeper level.
And never forgetting that this isn't just about acquiring knowledge.
Right.
It's about building bridges. It's about fostering understanding and working towards a world that's more just and equitable for everybody.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible exploration of cultural literacy. I hope it's inspired you to go on your own journey, make some meaningful connections, and until next time, stay curious and keep learning.